to infinity and beyond.
This is me. This is how I win.
Were you rushing or were you dragging? Answer!
You're a wizard, Harry.
Say what again? Say what again? I dare you.
No, I am your father.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
And here we go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back inside the film room. Zach Goins here with Johnny Sobchak for another delightful episode. Johnny, how are you doing on this later than normal podcast?
I'm doing pretty well. It's been a busy last few days, catching up on lots of news. Succession, of course, is in the thick of things, and then we have the Spider-Man trailer, imminent.
So I know I said a later than normal podcast, but I feel like it's starting to become normal that our podcasts are later. So maybe we should just become a Tuesday or Wednesday podcast. But this one's not on us. We have an excuse. We are waiting patiently for the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer. That's why we're recording late. We are actually recording this right now as we speak, 18 minutes before the trailer is set to release. So we're doing our podcast. Then when the trailer comes out, we'll talk about that and splice that into the news section. So it's going to be a heavily edited podcast today, I think. But we wanted to make sure, to get this podcast out once we see that trailer, rather than having a podcast release on Monday, trailer comes out Tuesday, and then us talking about it again 7 days later. So we apologize for the delay, but it's for the best, I promise. But other than that, like Johnny said, we're talking Succession today, season 3, episode 5. We are halfway through the season there, and we're doing a split review. I know the initial plan was to do a Spencer podcast with Josh Martin on here as well. We had to push that back for our friend Joshua, but today I will be talking about an Academy Award potential film, Red Notice, and Johnny's talking about the latest Netflix action slop, which is called Belfast. So it's going to be a great episode today. Isn't that correct?
Yes, sir. It's chock full of discussion.
That was a sarcasm, if anyone was just listening and thought I was mistaken. So just so you know, I just wanted to clear that up. That I reversed the titles there. But we are doing Red Notice and Belfast today. But off the top, we've got some shout outs here. We have to let the people know about some very exciting things in the world of Inside the Film Room. And that starts with our newsletter. We are launching a newsletter. I can't promise it's going to be weekly, but we'll say it's a weekly newsletter with some exceptions maybe. But it's called The Rewind. It'll be hitting your inbox Wednesday morning this week, but it's targeting to be a Monday morning, Tuesday morning kind of thing. But what it is, it'll be a rundown of what we do. We'll catch you up with all of our latest reviews, the links to our podcast episodes. Anytime we have a giveaway going on, it'll be in there. If we have interviews or YouTube videos, anything like that, it'll be there. So it's basically just your central hub for everything that you need inside the film room related. We want to make sure we're getting that straight to you rather than you having to search on YouTube, on Instagram, wherever to try and find everything. So we're consolidating it for you. There's going to be commentary in there that is exclusive to the newsletter. So whether it's Johnny with an awards radar kind of blip, or it's me with an introductory segment or something like that, there's going to be perks to being just a part of this club, and also special giveaways that are strictly for subscribers to The Rewind. I promise that we are not going to be blowing up your inbox. It's not going to be an overwhelming amount of emails. There's not going to be spam involved. So if you can just trust us with that, I promise that you won't regret subscribing. You can find that on our Twitter account. You can find it on the website as well. It's all over the website. There should be pop-ups, sidebars, actual posts about it. and all you have to do is put in your email and you will be good to go. But with that being said, there are 2 giveaways that we're running right now. One is a Candyman Blu-ray, Nia DaCosta's horror movie. If you subscribe to the Rewind, you are automatically entered to win that. The winner should be announced in the next day or so. And then we've got a big one for all the Ted heads out there. We're giving away a Ted Lasso jersey straight from Apple TV Plus. It's your blue jersey with Dubai Air across the front, Lasso on the back, and the #1 jersey. And we're also giving away an AFC Richmond scarf. You got to stay warm in the winter. So to be entered to win both of those, all you have to do is subscribe to the newsletter. And again, we're going to be picking a winner for that very soon. So a little incentive to hopefully have you get in there. I know we're super excited about this, and it'll be an opportunity to help us continue to grow inside the film room as we look for some new goals at the end of 2021 and heading into the new year. So I know Johnny and I are both super excited about that.
Oh yeah. I really, the Ted Lasso train is just passing me by, I feel. But season 3, there's plenty of time for me to
That's what you said about season 2.
To hop on the caboose as it's going by. So we'll see.
Maybe one day. I'll just tell the cast for you that you just have no interest in speaking to them, because that's what it sounds like.
Oh man.
No, don't you worry. So speaking of Apple TV Plus, as we get into our What's Going On segment, I'll kick things off here. I've been on a little Apple TV Plus binge over the last couple days, over the weekend. I've been continuing to explore the outside of Ted Lasso offerings. The Shrink Next Door just kicked off this last weekend. That's we spoke about it a couple weeks ago with our fall TV preview, and it has now arrived with 3 episodes on the opening day. It's Paul Rudd and Will Ferrell. And I've watched 2.5 so far. I'm almost caught up, but it's intriguing. You think Paul Rudd, you think Will Ferrell, and it's going to be some like Anchorman style laugh out loud comedy, but that's not the case here. So the jury's still out. I'm not sure if I'm like completely hooked on it, but hopefully, since they did 3 episodes, hopefully I'm going to get something good to finish out this 3rd one. But it's like a sort of heavy drama with like some comedic moments in there. I mean, it's Will Ferrell's like this insecure guy. He's got all sorts of like anxiety issues, and then Paul Rudd is his therapist that he starts to go see, but it turns out that he's kind of taking advantage of him and doesn't have his best interests at heart. So I'm curious to see where that goes. But I know we hadn't really heard of it when we talked about it with Avery a couple weeks ago. Are you planning to check this one out or no?
No, probably not. I again, TV is by far my weakest, compared to film, especially. Like I just have a very difficult time keeping on top of everything. So usually I do end up catching up after the fact. I mean, Succession, look, the first couple seasons I did, I only got on the train after season 2 was well out of the way. So, but now that I've caught up and I really like it, I'm totally on season 3. And really, I think other than just trying to think about major TV in general, especially live, like not binge able shows like on Netflix or anything, but stuff that comes out week to week and things like that. I mean, but other than Succession, Game of Thrones is like the other show that I've ever done that way. I think like a major show. Westworld for the first couple of seasons I did as well. But so it's very rare that this happens. So it's not Schmigadoon's fault by any means.
Well, that is the other one that I was exploring this weekend. That is one that I'm catching up with because it's already done. It's only 6 episodes, but it came out over the summer on Apple TV Plus. It's like a musical theater inspired one. So my brother had recommended it, and Rebecca's into it as well, since they both have that musical theater background. But I'm 4 episodes in there and enjoying. It's pretty light and fun, so I'm enjoying that. So, but the biggest event of the weekend, Home Sweet Home Alone on Disney Plus. Look how they massacred my boy. It was a devastating turn of events. I mean, I can't say I was expecting too much from it. I'm a loyal Home Alone fan. It's my favorite holiday movie, Home Alone, and I ride for Home Alone 2, Lost in New York as well. But this, I mean, there's always been that question, of how would they make Home Alone in a modern day time? Like, at least I've like thought about that because, it's like with cell phones and like doorbell cameras and I don't like all of the technology of today, like how can you leave your child at home and him not be safe, or how can there be like all of the stuff that makes the first one so great, the second one so great. So they do address those things. Like there are certain issue. It's still not, the basic question, which was the same in the first one, like why didn't he just go to the police? But this movie, it was not pleasant. I mean, it wasn't as unpleasant as something that we're going to talk about later, but
Oh boy.
I gave this 2 stars. It had a few moments, but my biggest issue with it was that for 95% of the movie, you believe that the child, like the whole point of the first one is that like you love Kevin McAllister, even though he's like sadistic and twisted as he's torturing these burglars. It's like he's the good guy, he's the victim, and he's fighting back against the burglars. But for 95% of this movie, you think that the burglars here are like, this is genuine. The burglars are like a down on their luck family. The dad's been fired. They're about to have to sell their house because they don't have enough money. And so it's like a husband and wife, and what happens is they believe that this child has stolen something valuable from them, and they're trying to break into the house to get it back. And so you think like it makes it all seem like this child stole this from them and now he's like fighting to keep it. And that's like defeats the entire purpose of it, because I'm like, this kid sucks. He brought this upon himself, and he was not like redeemable in any sense. And so like ultimately there's like a twist at the end, but like when it's 95% of the movie spent thinking one thing and then 5% thinking something else, like it makes it was too quick of a reversal for me to actually like feel some sort of like sympathy or to make it be effective. So I mean, it was also, other than that, I mean, it was also very like, I still laugh my ass off at the at like the practical humor and like the slapstick stuff from the first 2 movies. Like I think that's aged incredibly well. But in this one, it's very like try hard, like it's over the top, and I'm a child probably is going to enjoy it more than me. I know I'm not like necessarily the target audience for this, but like it just doesn't match up with the first 2 and their style there. But there are a few fun Easter eggs, a few fun nods to the classics. The Buzz, Kevin's brother, all grown up, plays a police officer who comes by the house, and it's not just like, oh, we got the same actor. He's playing the character Buzz, and he gets a phone call to come, and it's like saying, oh, that we heard that there's a kid left home alone here and someone's breaking into the house. And he's like, haha, very funny, my brother, I know that's my brother. Kevin called this in. He does this every Christmas because we left him at home back in the day. And so it's like the insinuation that this is a Home Alone cinematic universe where like they are not isolated events, but this happened in the same universe. I thought that was honestly, like, it sounds kind of cringy, but it was one of the better parts of this movie. And then there's also a very on the nose moment, which was funny. In the first one where it's like, the Angels with Filthy Souls is like the old classic mobster movie that he plays when he gets the audio of like, I'm gonna count to 5 and then I'll shoot you up. And so there's like a modern, like futuristic sci-fi version of that sequence happening on a TV that like one of the kids is watching. And then like,
what the hell?
One of the dads walks by and he's like, look at this, always trying to remake the classics. And like, it's almost like we're looking into the camera, like winking, because that's like obviously what they're doing here. So I as a fan of the original, I liked that moment.
Don't like that.
But it was like, those are 2 moments that sound super cringy, but like compared to some of the other stuff in this, it was like it was a nice albeit not subtle nod to the classics there. But that was my viewing weekend. I don't expect you to really watch any of those, I don't think.
Yeah, not gonna happen, I would say, most likely. The Home Sweet Home Alone, definitely not gonna happen. I've just heard that
You do love Christmas movies, though.
I've heard
I know
it's
right
literally
up-
one of the multiple people that I know and trust have said it's one of the worst movies they've ever seen.
ever. I mean, I
Yeah.
would not go that far. Like that seems a bit extreme. But
That seems extreme, huh?
I mean, to say ever, all time in the history of movies that you have ever seen, like I
It's currently
didn't.
it's rocking a 1.6 on Letterboxd right now.
I mean,
That's
I've
pretty
I've
bad.
seen some lower scores than 1.6 in my, at least in my, let's see, like for me personally, on my I said I gave this 2 stars on my review. Let's see. Pulling up my list right now for the year. How many do I have ranked below it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 8 movies below this for this year. So for me, I definitely would not say it's one of the worst movies I have ever seen.
Hey, I'm just saying what the people
Your
are saying.
sources need to check. You need to check your sources.
It's I'm
Breaking
looking
news.
at this now.
Breaking news, Tom Holland has just emerged from the back of the crowd at the fan event for Spider-Man No Way Home. So there is some incentive to going to see it in person. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I mean, if you're gonna have it again, if you're gonna have it, like I said on Twitter yesterday, in just one theater in LA, then you better make it worthwhile. Because obviously Tom Holland can't be all over the world at once seeing these trailer events. So that's pretty interesting. I wonder if anyone else will show up.
Who knows? Maybe. But more on that as we get this trailer in the next couple minutes. We will do a like you put the news music in here and break away to that. Sorry to interrupt your programming. But anything that I know you were at some of Reagan's shows this week. So is there anything that you were able to catch up on in film or TV?
No, that was really, I mean, the show, I must say, was by far the best thing that I saw this weekend. But did see Belfast, of course, which we're going to be talking more about. And then also rewatched Mother from 2017, Darren Aronofsky's film. Reagan had not seen it yet. She wanted to watch it, had heard some pretty interesting things about it, which, if anyone knows anything about the movie, is certainly an understatement. So I obliged, and we did watch it after one of her shows, and had a decent time with that. And then of course also Succession, for as far as TV goes. That was the only thing watching the new episode.
Of course. Well, shall we get into some Succession discussion?
I suppose we shall.
We are at the halfway point of Succession. Episode 5 has just landed this weekend, and it was another banger. Like this, we said last week that episode 4 was kind of like, it was still great, but it was kind of like a more toned down episode. I thought this one was back to like top tier Succession standards. I don't know if you felt the same way, but everything that had been leading up to it, we'd been hearing about this shareholders meeting for so long, and it finally happens, and it's getting down to the wire with trying to settle with Stewie and Sandy, and we've got the family, and they're like going back and forth with Stewie and Sandy, and then Kendall's coming. Like it's just like so much is happening all at once. And even though it was similar to last week where like everything was basically in one location, like this was so much more dynamic, I would say. And there was just a ton going on, and they handled it all super well. A ton of great character moments, which we'll get into. But are you in the same boat as me, or am I speaking falsehoods here?
No, I think you're spot on. I really did love this episode. I thought it was quintessential Succession. Really, I thought, as much as I liked it, I don't know if I could say, oh, this is the best episode of the season or the best episode since so and so. But I thought that if this isn't one of the best episodes or the best episode of Succession, it might be the most episode of Succession, or like the most Succession-y episode that in recent memory, for the simple fact that it really has everything that you love about the show or could want from the show in packed into this less than 60 minutes of quips and quotables and hilarious back and forths and plot twists and discussion about shareholder meeting and drama between Tom and Shiv, drama between Roman and Kendall, drama between Logan and all of his children and everyone else who works for him. It was just a very it was funny, and not only was it fun and funny, but it had great more serious and dramatic moments as well, tied in with very uh tense and suspenseful plot development with regards to what was actually going to happen at this damn shareholder meeting.
Right. I mean, there was no, like, Succession is kind of like, obviously not to the same level, but to draw from another HBO masterpiece of Game of Thrones, like, you never know what's going to happen. Like, they're not getting their heads chopped off or anything, but metaphorically speaking, they may be. And like, it's one of those things where like nobody's safe. Like, this could have gone either way for Waystar Royco, and they could have gotten screwed over by Sandy, or they could have, as we saw, successfully settled, or what we think is a successful settle so far.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to what we said last week, that it was a great Greg episode and his stock was rising, whereas Shiv was trending downwards. But this was they slammed down the reverse card in Uno, because Greg was just eating it all episode, getting burnt by Kendall right off the bat, and then Grandpa Ewan just absolutely cutting him out of the will and donating all of his money. Greg is now having to sue Greenpeace, which is a tough look. So rough going for cousin Greg. Meanwhile, Shiv, although she still did get yelled at by Dad at the end, but she was in the driver's seat handling all of these big decisions while Logan was sidelined, and she was doing it with the full support of everyone around her, and being trusted by them she was the one who pulled out this deal with Sandy, and while doing so was able to negotiate something that will hopefully for her benefit her down the way. So I would say that was an all-star performance for herself by Shiv, while Greg is just left floundering. But any other standout characters from this, either standout performances or standout stock rising, stocks going down?
I mean, everyone was just so damn good as usual. I think in an episode this heavily focused on Kendall, I think it's hard to overlook, Jeremy Strong is like the main performer of this episode, just because he again has the drama, but he also has the dramatic, and as well in combination with the dramatic moments that we see that kind of bookend the show and then sprinkled throughout. There's also the hilarious exchanges and one-liners that he has, particularly with the scene with Greg. I thought was not necessarily the best scene in the show, but like the episode. But I thought it was so like Kendall, he knows what he's doing at times. Like, he might be kind of an idiot at other moments, but I think that was a really great show of, he gets shoved around a little bit and people can rough him up, his family, but he also knows how to play the game as well. He's not afloat without a paddle. He can make moves when he needs to, and if that means shaking down Greg to scare him off, or kind of strong arm him a little bit, that's what he'll do. And he's kind of non-committal, like he's kind of not saying exactly what's going to happen, but he's planting that seed in Greg's mind, and now maybe he's putting Greg off in a whole nother direction. Who knows?
What were your thoughts on Kendall, while we're praising him, on his decision to come on stage at the end against the wishes of his lawyers, as he kind of tried to Carl? I hate Carl. Carl was so annoying. Just leaving Frank out to dry and then trying to steal the thunder, stepping up whenever it was good news to share. But when Kendall went on stage to kind of try and make an appearance, and it seemed like he went out there with big hopes, high hopes, and then kind of sputtered out as he was mumbling and awkward, and like, do you think that was a good? Do you think that helped him? Because I'm kind of mixed on that. Like,
I'm very mixed on that as well. I don't know exactly what we're supposed to take away from that necessarily, other than Kendall cannot manage to not fuck something up, no matter how good things might be rolling in his direction. It seems, speaking of Frank, though, Frank and Carl, so damn good this episode. It's so funny how those, I guess, secondary and maybe even you might define them as tertiary characters, or can still, it feels like they can sustain their own kind of storylines and even whole episodes at times. Peter Friedman as Frank, it was very funny. I mean, he really carried for the Roy Waystar clan in this episode, going out there like he did. But yeah, I don't really know what to make of that. I thought it was hilarious how Kendall kind of sneaks up behind
right.
on stage like a serial killer, or like a slasher film. I thought that was hilarious. But yeah, what he ended up doing, God, I don't know. I don't know what the hell he's thinking. I really don't know. And then he goes, and I also don't know what to take away from the ending of this episode as well. We should hit on that, where Logan, it seems like they come in and tell Kendall that, oh, your dad wants to meet with you, and he's like, okay. So he goes. He agrees to see him again, which was a little surprising. He goes in there, and then they're like, oh yeah, Logan left. And so he's kind of left there and is like, what the okay. And you think, well, what's he gonna do? And he pulls out his phone and he goes to call his dad. And then his dad's like, he tells his assistant, block this number, and permanently. I don't know, like, it's a show of like weakness maybe from Kendall, but I don't really know. Like, I'm curious as to what they want us to garner from that. Like, obviously we now know that whatever's going on, like, Logan is essentially cutting him off like permanently, even though it seemed like at the end of last episode they were kind of coming together in some form or fashion. So that'll be something, that's another interesting development, something to watch through the rest of the season.
I mean, with in reference to last episode, like, they were coming together only because of the incentive to work together to save the company from Stewie and Sandy, and then it was back to normal. And so I assume that now, with Logan knowing that we've settled, we've gotten this takeover out of the way, so now I don't have to like work with him in any capacity, and it's back to being, we can like go back to being enemies. So I guess it was really just trying to humiliate Kendall and show him again that, like, you're the puppy dog and I control you. Like, you're willing to come and meet with me, and I'm just gonna like jerk you around. So I think that was a real power move, or an attempt at a power move by Logan, and just another misstep for Kendall, unfortunately. But
yeah,
while I want to go back, you were saying the tertiary characters. I have to shout out Juliana Canfield, who plays Jess, Kendall's assistant, because she was just like a vessel for all of us, as she's like constantly like just sighing and rubbing her eyes and just frustrated beyond belief. Like, she is all of us as all of this madness unfolds.
Yeah, that's a great point. She was very funny in a very subtle kind of background sort of way, but yeah, there is my favorite thing about this episode. First off, it was really, they set up so many great little hints and clues throughout the episode, building up to where it was going, which was that Logan was going to be completely off his rocker and incapacitated by this UTI situation. I did not ever suspect a urinary tract infection would be a key plot point in Succession, but here we are. And I gotta say, again, they did it really, intelligently. And if you look up, about UTIs, people, are susceptible to them, and the effects are very accurate to what they have in the show, especially if you are affected by dementia or something, a degenerative disease like that. This can happen to you. And they set it up at the beginning with his pills, and it's like, he's confused about his medication, and she leaves him. How? Okay, first off, though, I have to say,
How irresponsible for her to just leave them. Like she just
How-
hands them the pills at the very beginning of the
how
episode.
is she still employed at the end of this episode? How is she
Yeah.
walking around like acting like she still has a job? I mean, sure, I'm sure she'll stick around for whatever, but I mean, this girl would be not only unemployed, but probably facing some sort of lawsuit in real life. But yeah, that was funny. And then just the way it so quickly unravels into this whole situation where Tom is like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. And Shiv is like, what the fuck is going on? And Roman is like adamant that he'll be fine. And Connor's like ready to like leap at the chance to take some control.
Connor's making power moves. Just the last
Dude,
he's had more screen time in the last 2 episodes than he did in the first 3 before that.
Connor is he's fucking saddled up, man. He is ready to, he's a whole new.
I really wish we could have seen him on the phone with the president rather than Roman.
That would have been, I would have loved to have seen that. I'm sure it would have been funnier than what happened with Roman, but the Roman thing was just so pathetic. And like, he really was like, you have to respect him kind of for stepping up to the plate and taking it on in that way. But at the same time, he was so in over his head, and he proves to be so in over his head at every turn. It's they're so messy, man. They're just so damn messy. And Shiv, another example here. I mean, she's just a big idiot. And I know building up through most of the episode, we're like, she's really made to seem like an idiot with this whole situation. And then she goes and she like pulls off this negotiation with Sandy, and it's like, okay, she did it, and there it's like kind of celebratory, but then also Logan's like super pissed at her, and so everyone's kind of like, oh, I don't know. Roman's acting like she's a complete moron, and or he calls her like a bitch, and he like goes over and is talking to Logan about it. It's just like, I don't know what the hell is going on with them. It seems like she is so on the outs with her dad at this point. I don't really know what her path really looks like from going forward.
The secondhand embarrassment from that was just like so cringy. The way that she just gets absolutely ripped by him at like full volume, and then tries to like play it off and like chuckle and like act like it's not a big deal when literally like everyone in the room knows it's a big deal. Like the way it's like, that's the epitome of this show, is like the way that all of them continuously try and like downplay their absolute humiliation from their father. And it's just like, they all do it. They all are victims of it. So it's not like you're hiding this from anyone, because everyone sees that and knows exactly what just happened.
Yeah, it's yeah. And it's funny because I don't really sympathize with her in any real way, because I think she's
right,
a pretty shit human being. But it is, again, this is what Succession does. They make you feel bad for these people, even though you shouldn't really. I mean, but to see her get totally on blast from her dad, someone who she does care about ultimately, it seems like, and is trying to do the right thing, looking out for the best interests of. And she was working with a difficult situation. I mean, let's face it. I don't think it's. I think you don't even have to go easy on them to say, yeah, that's a tough situation. It was a tough fucking situation to make that call and to say, oh God, would this be what dad wants? There's nothing he can do about it at this point. So you just have to suck it up and make something happen, or there's a lot worse from their point of view that could happen to them. And he could end up being probably a lot more pissed off if they are totally at a chance of losing complete control. So yeah, that was, it's so interesting. Like, Succession always has you guessing. Like, you can never get a good read on something for more than an episode before
it's worse. It's worse than Thrones. It's worse than like alliances on Survivor. Like, it's so fluid. Like there's so much backstabbing, and you can never decide. Yeah. I know, like, there's literally like people are just so willy-nilly and just literally doing anything they can to advance themselves. And even cousin Greg can be the victim, or Tom. How about Tom getting called son by a disoriented? He offered to hold Logan's dick while he went to the bathroom for him. Like what?
Oh,
My guy was just groveling for some approval, and he finally got called son.
yeah, that was okay. First off, we're at like the end of the discussion here. One of the funniest things I've been meaning to mention during this is the cat situation. that
When
comes up.
they
And and the way that they are totally so he's like completely not lucid, like he is having delusions actively, and everyone is just trying to make it seem like he's fine, and they're playing into it like he's a little kid. And God, what's the name of the guy who's the head of the security?
I'm not
he
sure his name, but he plays along with it. He does his role.
he literally acts like he's taking a cat from under Logan's chair and has to like carry it out. He's running out of the room with it in a bag, and it's just an empty bag.
And he's even like shaking the bag to make it seem like there's something in there.
And the way the cinematography, the way it's like handheld, and there's like this like kind of like these like slam zooms in on things, the bag that he's like carrying out. It's just so funny. And also you have the little dialogues that are going on around Logan that are about him, but they're not, even though he's sitting a few feet away, they're not aimed at him. They're just talking about him because he does not understand what the hell is going on. There's a line from Carl where he says, can we get the body up on stage at least, or something like that? Like he's a dead like person or like a vegetable. It was just so absurd. I mean, this is some of the hardest I've laughed in any episode of Succession. I really thought it was on that level, like one of the funniest episodes, but also again, one of the most stressful and unpredictable, where I really didn't know what the hell was going to happen. And that is so good. That is so entertaining and just flat out, there's no show that does what this show is doing, at least on this level, and is this accessible as well. And I think again, who knows what is going to be going on next episode, because now we have to think about the fact that the shareholder meeting that they've been talking about for episodes and episodes is no longer a thing. That's done. That's
the Battle of Winterfell has happened. The Night King has been defeated, and now the houses are going to finish quarreling, which is what's going to happen within the Roy family.
And we also, now it was always kind of left open as to whether or not Sandy and Stewie were ever going to have any real control, or were going to have any activity or say with what goes on in the company, if they were going to gain that ownership. And now they have come to an agreement. They are going to actually be a part of this thing now. That's going to offer an entirely new dynamic as well.
Definitely. I'm thrilled to see where this final 5 episodes go. I have full faith and confidence in this show absolutely being able to continue to outdo itself on a weekly basis. So I heard it only gets so ready.
I hear it only gets better from this point forward. So I'm so stoked.
Right. I mean, it's one of those things, we keep saying it week after week, with the exception of last week, that it has been getting better. So at what point does it plateau? It can't be exponential growth for every episode for 4 seasons, right?
Hey, you'd be surprised.
Well, let's get into some news, some breaking news. The Spider-Man No Way Home trailer has dropped. Johnny and I have watched it, and we're talking about it. All right, there we have it. We have just witnessed the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer, and this is the live reaction. We haven't discussed it yet. We paused the recording so that we could both watch. Johnny, what are your instant reactions? We have no sightings of Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire, but we have plenty of villains to go around. We see Jamie Foxx for the first time as Electro. We see the Lizard coming back from Amazing Spider-Man 1. So that's both Amazing Spider-Man villains. We see Doc Ock. We see Green Goblin. No actual like mask reveal or anything there. No taking the helmet off. But that's at least 4 big bads here that have all died, as Doctor Strange says, died fighting Spider-Man. And it seems like we've got a little bit more of a understanding of the premise here. Like my takeaway here, it seems like the bad guys aren't trying to fight Spider-Man. Like Doc Ock seemed sort of friendly when he realized it wasn't Peter Parker, as in Tobey Maguire, and Tom Holland was saying basically he didn't want to have to be the one to kill all of them. So, and that was why things are going crazy. Is that your reaction? Is that what you took away from this as well?
Yeah. There doesn't really seem to be much in the way of it's really like they just took those characters and just dropped them into the middle of the MCU. With Spider-Man, Tom Holland's Spider-Man. As the trailer points out, these characters all seemingly at least died in their respective movies. I don't remember Sandman dying. He just floated away. I guess that he.
So question though, because was that like, we see the face of what I thought was Sand, but it looks more like Jamie Foxx's face. So I was kind of confused as to whether that was like the actual Spider-Man 3 Sandman. I don't know.
Yeah, it is, right?
I mean, I know we had heard rumors that he was going to be included in this, so
yeah.
I think it would make sense.
Yeah, the face you're referring to the big sand face, right?
Right, and because it's next to it's like next to Electro and the Lizard,
and Goblin's probably flying around, I would assume. That seems like it'll be the end of the movie, if I had to guess.
No sighting of Rhino. I didn't see, who was also rumored.
Maybe not the very end of the movie. Maybe that's like the end of the second act. If I had to guess, I don't know, man. I'm really just kind of shell shocked by that trailer, if I'm being completely honest.
Was that a Captain America shield on top of the Statue of Liberty?
It was. We did hear tell. It was rumored that the Statue of Liberty was going to be not remodeled as Captain America, but a Captain America shield would be integrated somehow. And that rumor seems to be true. So, yeah, that's kind of interesting. We don't really see a whole bunch outside of this trailer seems comprised of like a handful of scenes.
Right. A lot is coming from the same place.
Yeah, it's not really a trailer with like a narrative of any sort. It's just kind of like hopping all around, but between just a handful of scenes. We have the Statue of Liberty scene you're referring to with all the villains. There's also the bridge scene, which we've seen a million times now in promo images and in the last.
Which also seems to be getting an ending in this now, because the Doc Ock scene where he says, "You're not Peter Parker," he's capturing Spider-Man underneath the bridge. It looks like he's got him pinned up against some support beams. So we basically know like the beginning, middle, and end of that sequence.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, you're spot on with that for sure. And then there's also, we have this kind of back and forth where they're in like a dungeon of some sort. Like, I guess it might be at the Sanctum Sanctorum, whatever the hell it's called. It's Doctor Strange's house, where it's another Doctor Strange's house. It might be I would assume it's either there or maybe it's a different like magical kind of dimension. But where they are trapping at least Dr. Octopus. And I would assume several of the other villains, if not all of them. So you see Spider-Man is there, you see MJ, Ned, and then it looks like they're talking to Strange as well. So that'll be curious. There's also that cube that seems it seems like it might be a MacGuffin of sorts.
Right. We don't really know much about that.
Don't really know. I've seen people speculate that maybe the prior room that I just mentioned, the basement sort of area, could potentially, maybe it's like a magical space located inside that cube, and that cube is basically like a prison.
Okay.
So that's possible, but I mean, who knows? It could be just a regular physical space. But yeah, I don't how'd you feel about it overall? Like, we're kind of breaking down like what it was, but how'd you feel
I mean,
about it?
I agree with you that it wasn't necessarily like a narrative, like this is what you're gonna this is like the story that we are telling in this movie. Instead, it was more of like a highlight reel, just like a hype show. Which I feel like that's what people wanted from this. I feel like I watched this, I was entertained, and I am excited to see this movie still. I know we're kind of like cynical about it, and because of just like all of the like nonstop discussion about it and anticipation and guessing that kind of gets on people's nerves. But like, I'm still very excited to see this. It looks messy, but like not in like, for me, I'm like, it looks like good messy to me, as in like, I'm just going to be so overwhelmed with like everything that's happening. And I'm going to be like happy to see it happening, that I'm not going to necessarily care like that it's kind of just like so all over the place, which I know that was kind of the main criticism of the original Spider-Man 3, is that it was just like messy and had too much going on. But at least this is like, seems to be like giving the fans exactly what they want, with like the multiverse and everything coming together. And I was fully expecting at the end, when he said they're coming and I can't stop them from coming, like I feel like in the real movie, in that sequence, we're gonna get Toby and Andrew, but like they just didn't want to reveal it in the trailer. Like I don't know. Is that your impression as well, or no?
Yeah. I don't know how I really feel about, I get why they're not showing them, because at this point people are going to see this movie in droves no matter what. That includes super fans that are well aware that these characters are going to be in the movie, and that includes casual general moviegoers who have no idea that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield probably are going to be in this. So what is showing them really going to do? As soon as the movie is out and people know that, that's going to be a huge talking point, and then I'm sure the marketing will kind of dive into that. But for now, it doesn't seem like a necessity. So I'm not outraged or upset about that at all, to be honest with you. I know some people might feel differently, but I think that's fine. I think there's so much going on here. I think you would be risking a situation if you showed that much more and you showed them fighting and stuff. I think it would be kind of anticlimactic once we actually get to watch the movie in the theater.
Right. Because that's again, that's even though like I think we've mentioned this in the past, like it seems like there are no surprises left with this movie, because like we've either seen it in a trailer, or it's been leaked, or it's just been like common knowledge, that they're going to be in it. So like, I'm glad that like we know it'll happen, but we still don't know how it'll happen, or at least I don't. And so I'm like, I don't need to see that in a trailer, because like I still want there to be some reason for me to see this movie. Like I said, I'll see it anyway, but like I want there to be some sort of payoff here, instead of me being like, oh, I already see hi, I'm Spider-Man, I'm Peter Parker. Like, I want to be surprised by that, even though I know it's coming. I will say there was a bit of even though they weren't in it, Tom Holland sort of looked like Tom Holland had some major Andrew Garfield hair going on during a couple of these sequences where I had to like kind of double take almost. He's got like that, instead of his like usual like shortcut haircut, it was a little bit more like puffed up, I would say, specifically in that, I think it's a scene with Aunt May. But
he does have longer hair, it seems like, more so than the previous two movies. All right, last couple of things I'll say on this, at least if you want to respond or not. God, I don't know. I feel like this could really go either way at this point. Like, I'm being honest. Like, it might be really cool and fun and great, or it could be like just a total like mess. And this trailer did not do anything to to really convince me that it won't be more like a mess than anything else. I don't know. Maybe it's the actual like editing of the trailer itself. As I mentioned, it just kind of bounces all over the place. But I don't know. At least they are not going full blown, and they are keeping surprises, quote unquote. That's definitely the best thing about this trailer, I would say.
Right. I will say, like this is complete speculation, not I guess a leak or a spoiler or anything. So this is just a Zach Goins guess, or a Zach Goins wish that like my biggest hope as far as surprises go is like if somehow they've kept like a Miles Morales appearance under wraps, like if we get like a live action like from Into the Spider-Verse that he's like crossed over or something like that, that would be very cool.
That would be sick. Yeah.
But I will last thing I'll say, and it's not like a huge point, but I'm sure this is probably intentional, but this sequence where MJ is falling off the scaffolding looks very much like gave me vibes of Gwen Stacy, Emma Stone falling when she bites the dust in Amazing Spider-Man 2. When he like Peter like dives after her. So hopefully Zendaya doesn't go smack like Emma Stone did.
No, I mean that's definitely something that they're alluding to. I mean that's pretty obvious, I would say. But it will be curious. Yeah, is she gonna go smack? Is there gonna be? Are there gonna be? Tom Holland was just saying this the other day in the interview. That this is gonna be a dark, kind of sad movie and like not fun. I do wonder if there's going to be some sort of like long-term ramifications potentially of him making this decision, potentially, you know, people dying maybe. I mean, who knows?
There's one comment that I'm seeing that speaking about the scene we're just talking about when Mary Jane was falling and Peter goes after her is when one of the other Spider-Men will pop up. That'll be Andrew Garfield appearing and saying like, this is how my Gwen died or something. That's like the significance of how he appears, which I think that would be cool.
Yeah. I mean, that would make sense. I don't know. I mean, it's a month away now, so we don't have a lot of time to really think on it too much. I'm sure in the next few weeks, we'll get a lot more clips and you know, TV spots and things like that. But I think between now and then, we're not going to get anything really revealed necessarily. As much as we did here. I mean, we got a pretty decent look at all the villains here. Probably get a little bit better looks at them before the movie comes out. But I think as far as revealing characters and such, I think we're pretty much going to be going in from this point.
People are already speculating that in that sequence where it was Sandman, Lizard, Electro all going against Peter Parker on one or Spider-Man on one side, that Toby and Andrew have been edited out because Sandman's in the middle, which is level with Tom Holland, and then nobody is like up top with Electro or down low. Like it seems like they're all going straight across versus like all converging to the single point. So we know Marvel has kind of been notorious for hiding things in trailers and editing. So it would not be a surprise whatsoever if that were the case. But no, I know there was just the crazy numbers here. This came out at 8:30. It's 8:48 right now. In 18 minutes, we've got over 3.1 million views on YouTube for this trailer already. So I wouldn't be surprised if this breaks the record that the first trailer had done. Yeah.
Oh boy. All right. Well, there you have it, folks.
Well, let's continue on with our regularly scheduled news here and let's get this thing rolling. We are getting into our regularly scheduled news programming, which was not nearly as exciting as that. I know we had some back and forth feelings, but something that was a little more consistently negative, unfortunately, from this past week was Disney Plus Day, Disney's newly founded holiday, which is celebrating itself. November 12th marked the 2-year anniversary of the launch of Disney Plus. It's brought us some great things. It's brought us Mandalorian, but in honor of the anniversary, Disney Plus Day is this new event they're doing similar to, well, it wants to be similar to like a DC fandom, but it does not hold a candle to that because there's no live aspect to this. It's just a Twitter thread throughout the day and a couple like teasers on Disney Plus, which was the presentation of it all was a little bit underwhelming, I would say. But the results of everything that we got were underwhelming as well. I'll run through basically what we got, and then we can discuss if there's anything worth discussing from it. I've got a full write-up on the website of everything that came and posting like the teasers and the images and stuff. So if you want more detail, you can check that out. But first off, on the Marvel front, which seems to be what most people were excited about. And the result, which the biggest thing to come from this was a 14-minute teaser that came on Disney Plus. They didn't release it online, so you had to be a Disney Plus subscriber to watch it. But it was advertised as a 14-minute teaser showing like everything to come on Disney Plus. 7.5 minutes of that teaser were spent with WandaVision, with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, with What If, and with Loki. So the first half of that trailer teaser was stuff that has already been released. Then the next 5 minutes it was a scene and then like a sizzle from Hawkeye. So that 7.5 plus 5, 12.5 minutes of the 14-minute teaser was content that has either already been released or will be within the next 10 days or so. And then we finally got a little tiny bit of sizzle from what's to come. We got a first look at Oscar Isaac as Moon Knight. We got some footage from She-Hulk. And when I say footage, it's like a total of like three different like sequences that are like 2 seconds apiece. So not a lot. We got one look at Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury in Secret Invasion, and then a couple little snippets from Miss Marvel. But other than that, it was just a bunch of black backgrounds with a new logo on top of it, which, we got to see that the Agatha Harkness show, which had been reported previously. We got a logo for that, Agatha House of Harkness. We got the biggest announcement on that front with the logos was that there were a couple new shows. There's a show called Echo that's coming. It's from a spinoff of a character that we're going to meet in Hawkeye. There's a couple new animated series after the success of What If. They're doing a Spider-Man freshman year show, which is going to be set in the MCU and follow Peter Parker before we meet him as Spider-Man. So he's kind of coming into his own. There's a show called Marvel Zombies, which is basically, it seems like it's just a continuation of that episode of What If with the zombies. So, okay, whatever. They're reviving X-Men 97, which is the X-Men cartoon of the the mid 90s. They're bringing that back with new episodes. It's going to be called X-Men 97. But really, as we'll break it down by section. So Marvel, I mean, what is it? I think there's 26 projects in development at this moment. And we didn't really get much substance of anything. We got a lot of news without saying. It said a lot without saying a lot. I know you weren't really even like keeping up with it throughout the day, I would say, other than just like browsing Twitter. Anything that caught your eye here?
Not really. I mean, the most interesting thing I was kind of grabbed by and actually watched the trailers for were the Nat Geo documentary series that they are going to be doing on Disney Plus. There's one with Chris Hemsworth, which looks like a lot of fun, and then there's another one with Will Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Those look amazing. I mean, genuinely, like those are really two charismatic and fun actors to follow, and then also the photography and the locations are going to look amazing. All the Marvel stuff, the little Star Wars stuff they showed.
Right. I was gonna say that
very underwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more excited for the Star Wars projects that they have in development than anything Marvel related. And on the Star Wars front, all we got there was no like dedicated Star Wars segment like there was on Marvel or on Pixar. Instead, the only thing that was shown was an old Obi-Wan sizzle that released last year at Disney Investors Day. So a bit of a letdown there, because people were hoping for a full teaser or a full trailer or something from the Andor show. And instead, it was like Disney was just like an afterthought to all of the Marvel stuff that was being released. So that was a big bummer there. And then on the Pixar front, that was a 4-minute video on Disney Plus, which showed Larry the Cable Guy announcing a new show in the Cars universe with him and Owen Wilson. And then a look at the first original Pixar show called Win or Lose, which neither of those were particularly, eye-popping. But I mean, the Chris Hemsworth show looks fun on National Geographic. But and then of course there was a ton of like Disney brand stuff that will be coming. We got the announcement of High School Musical, the series season 3, which seems to be Frozen themed. The tagline was "Love is an open door." Announcements about Pinocchio with Tom Hanks as Geppetto. That's going to be a Disney Plus movie. Hocus Pocus 2. We got our first look at the Sanderson sisters back together. John Mulaney and Andy Samberg in the Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers movie. An announcement about Disenchanted, the Enchanted sequel. Ice Age show, Baymax show. Nothing that's, I feel like this was supposed to be some big, like, monumental moment, but nothing that really, like, has stuck with me whatsoever from this day. I don't think. Nothing really, like, newsworthy even. I know we're talking about it, so I guess it's newsworthy, but
yeah, I mean, I think the most notable news coming out of it, not even out of that entire day, not from the presentation itself, was the news that kind of came out after the fact, where it was talking about Chloe Zhao isn't going to be actually making a Star Wars movie. That was just kind of a rumor. And then also the very big report that came out from the Hollywood Reporter saying that Doctor Strange was going to be going into 6 weeks of reshoots, shooting 6 days every single week up into through Christmas. So that was a little bit of a bombshell that I don't think people were hoping for or expecting, but that was kind of what a lot of people were talking about as the day actually came to a close.
yeah, I mean, a lot of an underwhelming letdown, I would say. So Disney Plus, get your shit together for next year, for next November 12th. You have a full calendar year to figure it out.
I hate to say it, but DC fandom washed them again.
Was there even a Disney Plus day last year? I would
Yeah,
imagine
Investor
they
Day
did
was
something.
when they announced Rogue Squadron and all those TV shows. And
I thought that was on Disney Investors Day, which is separate.
Oh yeah, well, I'm trying to think.
Because I'm pretty sure Investors Day was like when we got so much Star Wars stuff and so much, like, a bunch of Marvel shows, and when they announced Lightyear and Turning Red and all that. Like,
Yeah. Well, no, there wasn't I don't think there was a Disney Plus Day last year. I think this was like almost like a combination of the two.
gotcha. Well, that's enough on that. Let's keep it rolling here. Another trailer that we got, which I hate to say it, but I don't think your excitement's going to be any greater for Don't Look Up. What were your thoughts on this? Adam McKay, Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence. What was the vibe here?
Not great, Bob. It's just so boring. Like I can't believe I forgot that this was a thing that came out today, to be quite honest with you. It just looks like the most obvious take you could have on a apocalyptic satire, I guess. It's the basic political jokes, the basic, cable news jokes, the basic, kind of social media driven stories that I seem to be including in this. Like, it just has nothing clever to say about any of that, especially when we live in a world where there have been, kind of apocalyptic things happening in our own lives for years now. And we have seen crazier and darkly funnier things happen in real life, like on a weekly basis. So Adam McKay did not get a very, in his defense, I guess, to some degree, he has a hard job coming up with stuff that can actually be funny and surprising in this context. And I think for me, again, comedy, everything's subjective, art's subjective, but comedy maybe most of all. And this just does not do it for me. I don't care how many Oscar nominated actors you have in there. I don't care how many Oscar winners you have in there. It just doesn't look funny to me. It doesn't look clever. Like, I liked The Big Short when it came out. I haven't seen it since it came out, but I liked it a lot when I saw it. I thought it was pretty clever. I thought it did a good job breaking down something that was kind of complicated and maybe to the layman not super interesting, and they made it interesting. This, I think, looks more like a throwback to his comedy roots, but it's still kind of in that political social satire zone that it just feels a little off to me. And we'll see what the final product's like. I could be totally wrong. Maybe the trailers and the promo materials aren't doing a very good job of highlighting its best aspects, but I just am not interested in this, and this trailer did not do anything to move the needle.
I will say, I mean, I'm not particularly like thrilled for this movie. I got invited to a screening for it from Netflix the other day, and they said they will not be providing preview content for this like on the Netflix app. You have to go to an in-person screening, which if I really wanted to see it, I probably would drive to Charlotte for this, but I'm not. But I will say this trailer was like, I thought this movie was going to be like an absolute lost cause when we got that scene from the Oval Office. I will say this trailer looked better than that, so that's good news to me at least. But still not great. I mean, we have this all-star celebrity cast list, Ariana Grande in there, Timothy Chalamet in there, and it seems like those are just going to be like little bit cameos, which is a bit disappointing. I don't know what I was expecting or hoping for necessarily, but not it's still getting tons of Oscar hype. I mean, the people in your circle that are talking about like all of the like that Leo and J-Law are going to both be nominated for Oscars. Is that accurate, you think, or is that wishful thinking?
Hell no, that's not going to happen. Zero chance that happens. I can tell you right now. Best actress is so stacked. I know they like Jennifer Lawrence, but I mean, she is not doing anything special here. I mean, I don't think that there's anything that'll even get their attention here. And Leo, he's more beloved for sure. And he is doing more. He's definitely coming across as a bigger personality and doing more interesting things than Jennifer Lawrence. But again, even that category is pretty solid right now. I mean, there's probably four or five really solid contenders. Will Smith is going to win. I don't think there's any question about that at this point. But you have Denzel in there. You have Joaquin is in the mix. You have Benedict Cumberbatch, Andrew Garfield giving two of the best, maybe their best performances respectively of their entire careers. So I definitely find that hard to believe. And, original screenplay, sure. It doesn't care how cringy it might be. Adam McKay has gotten in for worse, it seems. And, maybe editing is going to be kind of showy. Maybe it'll get in for that. With all the buzz around it, with all the big names involved, maybe it slips into Best Picture off the screenplay nomination as well. But I'm not really seeing anything else outside. I don't see, Meryl Streep, again, that's another one where it's like, okay, maybe that category is open enough and she is just so crazily beloved enough to get in. That's possible, but I don't see it really anywhere else.
Well, there you have it, folks. If Johnny says it, it must be happening. So
I'm certainly less optimistic on it now than I was maybe even a few months ago, just because of it's a super strong year. I think the festivals have come out swinging, and this is going to be a somewhat late breaker this year, and I don't think it's going to be good enough to really slide in on that level.
Gotcha. Well, something that I think will be sliding in if all of the hype is warranted. Let's hear it, Johnny. Tell me about Belfast, your review for the week.
Yes. So Belfast is directed and written by Kenneth Branagh. I didn't realize this because we know, Kenneth Branagh has probably been most talked about in the last 5, 10, 15 years for his franchise films. He directed the first Thor movie. He did the Murder on the Orient Express. He's also directed the someday to be released Murder on the Nile, whatever the hell that
Death on the Nile,
whatever that's called. And then he also did Artemis Fowl most recently, and maybe most infamously at this point. And so he has been kind of away from this mode of doing like prestige picks. he loves Shakespeare. He did Hamlet back in the day, but this is an original screenplay. It's totally, not taken from anything else. It is semi-autobiographical as well. So he based it on his own experiences growing up and living in Belfast as a kid. And that, I would say, is the biggest strength of this movie, is you can feel the very personal touch to it, and you can feel it feels very real and lived in. Like the details feel true to the era, they feel true to the location. It really kind of brings you into the headspace, and not only of the location as it exists as a place to live, as a place to go to school and to grow up, but when you introduce the conflict, which is the troubles, or the basically civil war that was going on there during this time with the Catholics and Protestants, then that brings in a new aspect of fear and danger and uncertainty, and what that means for your family, what that means for your friends, your school life, your home life. It was really interesting. I'm not super familiar, again, with that era, that conflict, or Belfast in general. So I was certainly entertained and kind of interested in that regard. And then, of course, once you have that story premise set up, and that kind of conflict, then of course you also drop in this really strong and charming ensemble, which is headed by this little kid, and he is very delightful. And it's interesting because he is the main character, and he's being kind of I guess campaigned as the lead as far as award stuff goes. But he is really, as I mentioned, just his name's Buddy in the movie, and he is basically kind of, he's at the right age, I think, for the story to be told in the best way, because he's not too young where he doesn't understand what's going on, or he can't be really influenced by what's going on as far as like fear or curiosity with regards to the actual changes going on in his neighborhood, in the city. And then you, of course, have his parents as well, and they're played by Jamie Dornan, and then Katrina Balfe is his mom. Jude Hill plays Buddy. And so you have Jamie Dornan, who most people are going to know from, the 50 Shades of Grey movies. Katrina Balfe, I wasn't super familiar with her. She's been in some really popular TV shows. I think the only performance I'd seen from her before this was actually in another awards contender from a couple of years ago, and that was Ford v Ferrari, where she played Christian Bale's character's wife. So they're both very, very good. And again, really more than anything else, as I've already attested to, they're just really charming. Like they have a nice warmth to them, and they come across as very personable. They have to go through some, difficult things in this, and not just with regards to raising the kids in this situation and dealing with the situation themselves, but also they have his parents are in this movie. Kieran Hines plays the grandfather, Judi Dench plays the grandmother, and they are pretty tight knit, and they have their own troubles going on inside the family. And it's just a really, I don't know, I really just found myself affected by this movie and kind of moved really consistently throughout. It wasn't really just one big moment that kind of maybe made me a little teary-eyed or anything. It just kind of had little surprises here and there throughout that really kind of spoke to me or hit home, or that really, again, with the technical qualities, which I alluded to earlier, but the sound design is really great. The way it captures the, maybe the fights and riots going on in the streets, or just the sounds that he would hear walking to and from school. And then there's also of course, the black and white photography, which has been talked about quite a bit at this point, but it looks gorgeous. It just is really well shot. Pretty dynamic as far as the camera movements go. There's a really interesting kind of rotating shot that happens in the very first scene of the movie that kind of grabs you, and then it really just keeps that momentum through the rest of it. It is, if nothing else, I would say, as far as the negatives go, it just is it's not a groundbreaking narrative. Like we've seen stories like this before. There have been more than enough conflicts through human history captured in cinema to kind of know what this story is like. And the story itself, with regards to the actual family, they keep it pretty simple. The grandfather's kind of sick. The dad is away on trips a lot for work, and he has to go away and work for weeks at a time. So it's not rewriting the rule book on this stuff or reinventing the wheel when it comes to depicting it, but it's done in a very competent and oftentimes impressive way, enough where I thought it elevated it from just being a good, satisfying film to being something maybe a little bit more, being really good and great. And I think that's why it is doing so well with regards to awards buzz. And I think, going into this movie, I think people are just going to really be charmed by the characters and be moved by the story. And it leaves you, I think, in a good position at the end where you're going to come out and be like, well, that was one of the best movies I've seen this year. I wouldn't say that this is by any means the best movie I've seen this year, or even my favorite. I thought Kenneth Branagh, again, this is probably his best directed movie in years and years, just because I do not like Thor. I have not even bothered seeing Artemis Fowl. I didn't like Murder on the Orient Express. So I was very impressed with his work. It was nice to see him back in that mode. And then, of course, the entire cast really delivers, and I'm excited to see them do more work in the next few years. I think these are going to be not breakout roles by any means for Kieran Hines and Judi Dench have been around forever, but Katrina Balfe, who's been around doing good work, Jamie Dornan, they've both been doing good work, but I think this is going to put them in a little bit different position. I mean, they could all be Oscar nominated or Oscar winners by the end of the season. So, and Jude Hill, of course, super young talent. I think he, again, has a bright future and can do some things. But overall, I went in maybe a little skeptical, maybe a little cynical, just because I think when awards movies kind of get that buzz going, it's hard to live up to expectations. But I didn't have super high expectations, and I just thought it just delivered in the right ways that I was looking for it to.
Well, I love to hear that. This is one that I am planning on seeing and was hoping to see, but couldn't squeeze it in before recording. But I'm curious. Well, first, so like you said, it's got an 88% critic score and a 90% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. But I've got a couple questions for you to get this discussion going. But so this is a movie that, as you've just said, is getting a lot of love, but I feel like for the most part, it's pretty under the radar as far as like general audiences go. Like, it's getting a lot of awards love. But it's like historical movie, sort of. It's in black and white. Like, it's not your Spider-Man No Way Home. Like, what is your pitch to get people to go and see this movie, knowing that it's going to be a big time awards player? What do you kind of like how are you pitching it to them, and saying like, oh, it's a great family drama about this? And like, what are the reasons to see this? I would say,
I think it's just a nice, ultimately, like, it's a heartwarming story. And I think there's a lot of, I think this is another reason I think King Richard is doing so well, and I think stands to potentially be a Best Picture contender right alongside this movie. I think people are really looking for those kinds of stories at the moment. And we have other, Spencer. It's a pretty dark movie. I mean, all things considered. We also have Tragedy of Macbeth that's coming around, which is black and white Macbeth. The Power of the Dog, which is a little bit more austere as well. But between these two, Licorice Pizza, I think, is gonna be another one that's kind of in that same realm. I just really think the cast is fun, charming, very talented, and the story ends up, I think it'll end up moving you and grabbing you in just the right ways, maybe ways you won't even expect. It just is. It takes and also it's worth mentioning because it is about this conflict that's going on. It does have darker moments and it does have more sad moments, but I think the way it kind of guides you through the narrative and then where it leaves you, I think will leave people satisfied and kind of happy on a high note.
Gotcha. Well, you don't have to pitch me, but I think that was a solid pitch. But looking back on your award season preview, your pre-festival predictions that you made for the site, you did not include Belfast when you were dishing out predictions or awards, but obviously now we know that it is a big time Oscars player. How are you reevaluating your picks after having seen this and hearing the discussion around it, how big of a player do you expect this to be come February?
Oh, it's going to be huge. I think there's you know, there is this kind of notion that once a movie is kind of deemed the front runner, especially early in the season, like October or even September, it might, it's hard to go wire to wire in that kind of with that on that label attached. But I don't know. I mean, I think this movie is going to get nominated quite a bit. I think it has potential. I think Kenneth Branagh will certainly be in the mix for Best Director. I think he could win. I think this could win Best Picture. I think it's certainly going to get nominated there. I think and for right now, it feels comfortable as the front runner. I think Katrina Balfe, she's going to get nominated. She could win. Jamie Dornan's going to get nominated. He could win. Original screenplay. Again, this is something that's close to home. It's at his heart. People really like and respect Kenneth Branagh. They know that, this was a, maybe not an easy film to write or to make. And I think maybe if he doesn't win director, which I don't, as of right now, I'm not predicting him to win director, but I think he could win original screenplay. And I think that seems more likely to me. And then, of course, when you have the technical qualities like this film does, and you're in for Best Picture, it's easy to pick up, nominations in other places. So cinematography seems like an easy lock. Editing seems like an easy lock and could potentially even win if it kind of sticks around and gains momentum there. Maybe sound. The sound design was really good. Is like a sleeper kind of best pick. Not super showy for the sound design, but I thought it was really well done. So I think those are like the main spots. SAG, the SAG awards. I think the best ensemble, this will certainly be in the mix. BAFTA will go crazy for it, I'm sure. So it'll be around, and it'll be around in a lot of major categories, and it could be winning a lot of the major categories as well. So I think as far as the major competition goes, in Best Picture, King Richard, Licorice Pizza. For director, Villeneuve will of course be in there for Dune. Jane Campion most probably for The Power of the Dog. Maybe even Paul Thomas Anderson for Licorice Pizza. And then with the acting categories, they're just so wide open. It seems like anyone can kind of really slide in or jump up. But for right now, I think Dornan and Balfe are they have really good, positions. I think they're kind of in almost, you could say, pole position for those. So again, hard to say where it'll be in 2 or 3 months, but I think for right now, it looks really good for those.
Well, outside of Balfe and Dornan, you mentioned the young Jude Hill. As far as child acting goes, I know it can be hit or miss. It sounds like this was definitely a hit. How would you compare him to some of the other child acting that we've seen recently, or just in general? Is this top tier, or is it just like serviceable in this role? Obviously, it's not bad considering what you have said previously, but is this someone that you can see taking like launching a career, or is this like going to be a one-time thing because he was a really cute kid and a good kid in this role?
I mean, he's so young, it's kind of hard to say. I think he'll stick around though. I really do think he was good. And I feel like he's someone who, because he is presumably he's Irish. I mean, he could be English, I suppose, but I could see him kind of coming up through, maybe smaller, English shows or Irish shows overseas, or Irish and English movies. And then, if he does stick around, if he likes it, I mean, he's just a kid, so who knows? He might not even end up wanting to pursue this, but I think he certainly has a future. And when you're in a movie this big, it's going to get this kind of attention. I suspect other talented, maybe not huge names, but big names or respected filmmakers and creators will want to cultivate that and collaborate with him.
Gotcha. Well, last
Judi
question.
Dench, talking about the ensemble though, Judi Dench, Ciarán Hinds, as far as awards, I think they will also be in there and could end up getting nominations as well.
Across the board, that would be something.
Yeah.
Last question here. This is a big year for Black and White. We've got Passing, we've got this, we've got Tragedy of Macbeth. Is there anything? I feel like there's at least one other one. But a lot of these awards contenders are using Black and White. Is it, does it feel like it's deserved? Like, is there a purpose for using black and white here? Does it feel earned? I know, like, I've seen some some discourse on Twitter saying that like a lot of movies are using it, but it's not necessarily like warranted in each movie. How would you say the black and white is used here? Is it purposeful, or could this have just been a full color movie and been just fine?
It's hard for me to, well, that's the thing with black and white movies thing. No matter if you feel like it's warranted or not, once you've seen it, it's really hard to imagine it any other way. You know what I mean? It feels right. And for period pieces, especially, you know, whether it makes sense or not, we are people, millennials, Gen Z, whatever. We're not familiar with black and white photography. Like, we've lived in a world where we have had color photos for as long as we've been alive. So, but in the period where this film existed, they had black and white photography still. So I think it does a good job of putting your mind into that space. For historical, you know, period pics like this, I think that works. And I think also it doesn't, you know, some movies shoot black and white and they don't do it with a lot of thought necessarily. They just do it to do it. This is, again, one of those better films where it just looks, it's so well designed and it's so well lit, and it has like super deep blacks and has these beautiful nighttime shots that are just really well lit with torches and light posts and things like that, street lights. So I think it is actually warranted. Before I might have said black and white, it'll probably just get in for, not, you know, maybe a cinematography nomination just because of that. And maybe, you know, maybe people will still be the thought process, but I thought it was actually well done. And it has, not only does it have really, you know, some interesting camera movements, but I thought the close-ups were particularly powerful as well. And some of the two shots where you have just a couple of characters in one room, the dynamic that they kind of work with there and just the way it's captured, I thought was very effective.
Love it. Well, there you have it. Belfast in theaters now. Any final thoughts before we move on to another masterpiece from 2021?
Not really. I just think, again, to reiterate, it is a good movie. Like, it's a pretty damn good movie. I think if you do go seek it out, you'll enjoy it for the most part. It's not going to maybe knock you off your feet. It's not going to be the best movie you'll see all year. For some people, it might be. But I think if you just go in with those expectations, kind of feel it out, and see where it takes you, I think you will enjoy it. And I certainly enjoyed it. And I've certainly, you know, to a surprising degree, moved by it. So I think that's another interesting element people can get from that experience.
Well, I was moved by a little film known as Red Notice. Johnny, have you heard of it? It's going to be an Oscar race. Red Notice is the latest on Netflix. It came out in select theaters, not last week, but the week before, and then hit Netflix last Friday, which has now been dubbed the biggest opening weekend in the history of Netflix, just like everything that they release without seeing actual like concrete proof or numbers or evidence. Everything we just accept is the new biggest thing of all time at Netflix. Which, considering this has Dwayne Johnson, Gal Gadot, and Ryan Reynolds starring in it, like, it's got the star power to justify that. However, it does not have the subject matter to justify that. This is a action, adventure, crime, thriller, globe-trotting film comedy, I guess. But it's a lot of things, but none necessarily good. 35% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, 91% audience score. Huge divide there. I'm interested to hear from some people who I have yet to encounter who watched this and enjoyed it, to hear what they enjoyed about it. But my score, 18 out of 100. This was one of the worst movies I've seen this year. And that's devastating to me. And I know I'm kind of sounding lighthearted right now, but anyone who listens to this knows that I ride or die for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Like, that's my guy. I start my day with coffee out of a mug with his face on it. So I'm usually one of those people who's like, okay, I'm willing to look past the silliness here, what's going on, the nonsensicalness of a Dwayne the Rock Johnson movie, and just enjoy it for the popcorn fun that it is. Because those movies, like, this is what I wrote in my review, like on the website, go check it out. But that, like, that a Dwayne the Rock Johnson movie is going to be big. Like, that's number one. It's just going to be like excessive to the max, and like those have been like successful in the sense of like the Fast franchise, those big action packed but silly movies that are a ton of fun. You've seen Jungle Cruise and Jumanji, where it's like a big adventure. You've seen like the more comedic stuff like Central Intelligence, or like the Prestige stuff, even with Moana, which that was not like a traditional Dwayne the Rock Johnson movie. But this one, though, it wasn't big and fun, it wasn't big and action packed, it wasn't big and adventurous, it was just big and dumb, honestly, which breaks my heart to say, because like I said, I went into this movie wanting to just turn my brain off, have some popcorn, enjoy it. And I couldn't do that because this was just so convoluted, and the humor was so forced, and everything was shot on these like awful looking green screens. So the globe trottingness of going to, I believe, 18 different locations or something like that. Which as I chatted with you all in the group chat, that the best part of this movie was the title cards that came up in between each location, because that guy, the graphic designer, was incredibly busy. But quick synopsis here. In the world of international crime, an Interpol agent attempts to hunt down and capture the world's most wanted art thief. So basically we meet Dwayne the Rock Johnson's character, Agent John Hartley, I believe was his title. And he works for Interpol. He's trying to track down an art thief, Ryan Reynolds' character, Nolan Booth, and they have a showdown at the very beginning, and then like end up having to team up as they're trying to take down the Bishop, which is Gal Gadot's character. She is the number one art thief in the world. Ryan Reynolds, in his schlocky humor, he says he's the number one art thief, and so he wants to take her down to take the title for himself, and The Rock wants to take her down because the law. But they're hunting after a egg of Cleopatra. There were 3 eggs. 2 of them are they like the first sequence, they find the first one, and then they know where one is, and then it's a mystery where the third one is, and they're just lurking all over the world for them. But it's a buddy comedy between those two, which Ryan Reynolds just does his same old once again. Deadpool, I love Deadpool, but I think that it was one of the worst things for movies, because it's literally it made Ryan Reynolds make all of his characters Deadpool.
I can't argue with that one. I mean, I don't watch a lot of Ryan Reynolds movies, to be fair, but maybe that's why, is because it just seems like he's just the same note in all of them now.
Right. It's the same like sarcastic, like trying to like sarcastic meta. I don't know, just like almost like breaking the fourth wall, like self-referential stuff. But it's rough. And a lot of this, like, I'm not going to go into too many like plot details, not that like I really care about spoiling this movie, but like there are so many twists in this movie. Like it feels like it has like 6 endings, and not because like things get wrapped up, but because it's like, okay, this is the twist, and this is actually happening, and these people are working together. And then like right when that happens, like it does another twist, and like, oh wait, but this person's back, and now they're doing, and it's like it gets to the point where it's like they keep twisting things so much that nothing has its, when they finally end the movie and there's like a final twist, it just doesn't have any effect, because I've already been twisted so many times that I'm like, okay, so this is what we're doing now. Oh, that was the one. That was the end. Okay, that's it. Let's wrap this up. Like, it wasn't like building up to something or anything. It just felt like a continuous nonsense. And the biggest nonsense of all was that there's an Ed Sheeran cameo at the end of this movie, and he yells, "Don't you know who I am? I'm Ed Sheeran, bitch." And Netflix got roasted on Twitter for trying to like hype up their own meme. They're like, the best part about Red Notice was that Ed Sheeran gave us this iconic scene. And people were like, how can you say this about your own movie? Like, this is not iconic whatsoever. So rough stuff there. Tough look for Netflix on Twitter, but I'm now opening the floor to questions if you have any.
Oh boy, I'm just loaded with them. I mean, what's there to say?
I mean, you can ask me about the awards potential here. I'm feeling some big time Razzies coming, maybe. I don't know if there's
what do you think about the state of Gal Gadot as a movie star?
Well,
I think that's an interesting question, because we know, of course, what happened with Wonder Woman 1984. She is quite the rise and kind of fall to some degree. Like, I'm going to be very curious to see how the last Wonder Woman movie performs, because people did not like the last one, 1984.
Right. And we've also got that you mentioned earlier, the godforsaken Death on the Nile. She's in that.
Yes.
She just got cast as the evil queen in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, across from Rachel Zegler. She's still supposed to be Cleopatra in that biopic with Patty Jenkins. Honestly, she was like one of the three main characters here, but also like super forgettable. And I know you've said in the past that like you don't think she's a particularly great actress. I mean, there was obviously nothing here that was like highlight reel worthy or anything. Like, when I wrote my review, I didn't even like feel I mentioned her character and like the plot points of it, but like I didn't feel the need to like go into depth about her performance or what she brought or anything like that, because it was honestly just like you could talk about Reynolds and his shtick, you could talk about The Rock and like his type of movie, but she was just like there, it seemed like, which like, I mean, again, like, whether you think she's a great actress or not, she's still like one of the bigger superstars in Hollywood. So like, if she's there, like, use her,
Right.
So I would say trending downward, unfortunately, for her.
The stock's not looking good. Well, on that note, talking about movie star potential, I guess, to some degree, what do you think about, you already talked about Ryan Reynolds, but then The Rock as well. Like, of course, people are going to eat him up, I feel like, no matter what. But do you think there is any, maybe ceiling to what he is doing at this point? We've seen, I mean, there's,
I feel like he is, I heard a discussion, I don't remember where I heard it. It was either like on a YouTube video or a podcast or something, but people were questioning whether he is like approaching, like, a year ago, 2 years ago, like, he could do no wrong,
Yeah.
like, everybody loves him. Now I feel like he's kind of, again, it breaks my heart to say this, but that he's like getting towards an area with like his people are used to like his Instagram and his like,
they're very used to it.
Right. Like, it's not like a new thing anymore. And like, he is just blasting Zoa energy drinks and Terramana tequila. And now he's done this rap song. It's about drive. It's about power. Like, I feel like
put in the work, put in the hours.
We stay hungry, we devour. Like, this, I feel like he's
too much.
Yes, we are devouring too much Rock, I think. And like, hopefully, like, we're both very excited for Black Adam. Hopefully that'll be great. Yeah. But like, I watched, it seems like a lifetime ago, but it was earlier this year, the TV show Young Rock. Like, it was pretty cringy, like, not a lot of like substance there other than like just putting The Rock everywhere. I mean, we've obviously heard for years about his potential presidential bid, and I'm like, this is like, let's just get back to like kicking ass and taking names, and let's tone it down a little bit, Mr. Rock rapper.
Yeah, it's like I guess
I still love him though.
oversaturation maybe would be a good way to describe it.
He's entering phase 4 of the Rock cinematic universe.
Overexposure. I mean, there's the joke now at this point where a lot of people, it's like you can't tell which scene from which movie is him in that brown button-up shirt in the jungle.
And he does go to the jungle in this movie, so fear not, there will be another addition to that montage.
There will be jungle. So yeah, and I've never been a big like The Rock fan, you know what I mean? Like I like him and I respect him. He seems like a very cool, decent human being and all that, and he's charismatic, no doubt. But I've never, I couldn't tell you how many movies of his I've seen. Honestly, I'm more familiar with him as a personality or as a professional wrestler.
I mean, that's always been like my biggest draw to him, was like his persona, like in real life, and like not even to call it a persona, but like everything that I've ever read or heard from people who have interacted with him, is just like he really, like, the persona is genuine, and that's what I love about him. Like knowing that, like, I remember like one specific profile that I read where it's like he met with me and like I felt like I was being interviewed because he was asking me so many questions about myself and like what I do and how I do, and like his kind-heartedness and like caring personality is like so genuine and tangible. And so that's what always made me like, that was always like my biggest thing of like, okay, so this guy isn't just like faking it for the camera. He actually is like this incredible person. So like that's always been part of why I'm like, yeah, I give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm like willing to look past that because he's like such a nice, genuine guy. So I have obviously never personally met him, but like if when I get asked like the who would you have dinner with question, you get 3 people. Like he's always one of my 3. So we're I hope he's not refusing my invite after hearing my criticism of Red Notice.
I don't know, man. I don't know how well he takes to criticism.
Well, as long as he doesn't refuse the invite from Vin Diesel for Fast 10, we're all good.
We're good. All right. Well, yeah, no, I certainly have no qualms with the guy. It's just I wish he has so much power, and he is so willing to devour, put in the hours. It just seems like why not put in more hours devouring good movies and making them? I don't understand why he settles. Like I just don't. I know he's trying to. He wants to entertain and he wants to make these 4-quadrant crowd pleasing, but you can do that and make good movies. Like it happens all the time. Well, not all the time, maybe, but it happens every year, I would say. And I think that there's so much more he could do. And, and we've talked about, I think maybe not us necessarily on the show, but, Dave Bautista has he's not been silent necessarily about how he has made a very successful translation, from the squared circle to, the silver screen. He has been putting in performances that are both successful and interesting and diverse in their tone and their range and everything. I wish we would see that from The Rock more. I know he's been hyping up Black Adam as kind of being that, but I mean, he's still playing a superhero effectively. I mean, I just wish we'd get something a little more. He could be something more serious, I think. I don't know if he's scared about his range or what. I just think that he needs to, at some point, I feel like he should take some more creative risks. I think that's the next evolution.
Right. I think he's very comfortable with what he does. And
exactly. That's what I don't.
And I'm with you. I wish that we could see quite a bit more from him.
Yeah. I think there's, and that's the thing too, is I think there is potentially more. I think that I don't know why we're not getting to it yet, and maybe we will eventually, but I hope that he at least goes for it. I think
especially, but like we said, like he literally, I may be waning a little bit, but like he still is widely beloved and can do no wrong. And so to have that power and that like invincibility, basically, like if you go for it and you miss once, like it's not going to be the end of the world for your career.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I am satisfied though with with this Red Notice roundup. And I think I will gladly end this now, and I will never have to hear about it or think about this movie ever again. And probably most
Until
of the people,
award season, baby.
award. Yep. I got Rock on my ballot.
Best actor at the Razzies. Let's go. Well, thank you all for listening. Thanks for putting up with us as we delayed the podcast a bit, but we hope it was worth it with our Spider-Man breakdown. We hope you enjoyed our reviews of Red Notice and Belfast, and we appreciate you tuning in and week out.
Absolutely. Love having these discussions, and certainly appreciate you guys tuning in and listening to them, keeping up with us, and keep up with us even better. Follow us over on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, give us a like on Facebook, and you can subscribe on YouTube as well. Zach, as always, we'll keep you entertained with some interviews and some other content. You can find the podcast episodes as audio videos over there as well. And those accounts can be found on social media at Inside Film Room.
And while you're at it, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and also, like we said at the top, subscribe to our newsletter. It's called The Rewind. It's on the website. It's on our social media. Go subscribe. We'll be sending everything to you. It's not going to overwhelm your inbox. We promise it'll be worth it. You'll be entered to win plenty of great giveaways. And it's honestly a win-win scenario. So go ahead and subscribe to The Rewind as well. And come back next week. We'll be talking King Richard and Tick, Tick, Boom. We will see you then.